questions that matter, lighting the fire to scatter, dancing with thoughts that flatter, building the dreams we chase after. Whispers are turning to thunder, echoes are pulling us under, fascism spark in the night, guiding us into the light, exercising the mind so bright, smarticle particles take flight. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Oops, sorry about that. Forgot to turn the old light on. My apologies there. Now you can see you, girl. How to do, how to do, how to do. Thank you for joining me for yet another update regarding the Epstein Maxwell files. You know what? Let's just jump right on into it.
So, trigger warning. I just went through one of the most difficult documents I've seen yet regarding Epstein, and I'm going to show them to you as well. So this is Leon Black, and you've heard me talk about him before. Leon is the co-founder and former CEO of Apollo Global Management, which is the company that owns Shutterfly and LifeTouch Photography. Now, this is your last chance to scroll before I show you what I'm going to show you. Ready? So you can screenshot to read this, but let me tell you what you're looking at. This appears to be emails between an attorney representing Epstein victims and possibly the SDNY, Southern District of New York, looking at possibly bringing charges against Leon Black, but it appears that never happened. If you go down to the second paragraph, 7 to 8 years, Black was violent with her, bites parts of her, blank. Violence was arousing for him, very painful for her. It goes into more about this, and then let me get you to the second page. They're also talking about a 16-year-old girl who was trafficked. There's another comment about a victim being described as 10 years old. Guys, this is just horrific, monstrous stuff. And again, screenshot these if you want. And I just want to remind everybody that our FBI and DOJ said that there was nobody else. It was all Epstein. Nobody else. Other countries have started bringing charges against a lot of the people in these files. Our country's done jack shit. Don't let this die. Share it. Do me 2 favors. First, go to my bio, sign the petition to end easy plea deals for child predators. It takes 2 seconds. The other thing, call your representatives, especially the ones who remain silent. Let them know that silence equals complicity and that is unacceptable, especially with midterms coming out. I don't know how anybody could read what we just saw and some of the other things that we have seen and sit there and say that there is nothing to be concerned about.
Also, let me clear some things up because there are people that are acting as if LifeTouch is selling pictures and addresses of children because we know that LifeTouch does a good chunk of school photos. They're not. You do realize that just because somebody was doing business with Epstein does not mean that he was farming your information. If that was the case, okay, your wet dreams, your fantasies about sex trafficking full-grown adults would have already been fulfilled. All of the scenarios that you all make up on social media would have come to light because Wexner, the founder of Victoria's Secret, why didn't he turn over that information to Epstein? When you all signed up for clubs and discounts stuff, I need you all to use your brains. And once again, I'm going to keep saying this until it seeps through your craniums. Stop trying to overly sensationalize this. You are not helping anyone, especially the victims. When it comes down to jury selection, where are they going to be able to find someone that's going to be able to give them justice? Because at this point, you all have come up with so many conspiracy theories. There are people arguing to the death and wanting all of this even more salacious evidence in order to believe the simple truth. Like Jesus married Joseph and a billy goat. Stop. Now, remember, Ghislaine Maxwell went on trial. She was convicted. Epstein decided to off himself before he went on trial. Okay. This one's a bit of a long one. It's a little over 3 minutes, but sit back, get comfortable, and pay attention to the information provided here. We'll talk about it on the other side.
I'm going to need you guys to take a deep breath and prepare for what I'm about to tell you, because this is truly one of the most horrific things that I've seen so far in the Epstein files, and viewer discretion is advised. So this file seems to be from a law firm sending this information into investigators. I believe it would be the FBI, or it says up there the U.S. Attorney's Office, in 2020 before Ghislaine Maxwell's trial in an attempt to provide evidence. And basically they said that they are representing a girl, a young Israeli girl who was trafficked to Maxwell and Epstein and was then trafficked to a number of adults through the Epstein network. You can see, just if you pause and read some of this, she was sexually abused and trafficked to people at parties at a fancy rich house in New York City. She said that the owner of this house was named Jeffrey. He had big fat eyebrows and curvy hair. Then there was a woman at the fancy rich house who seemed very important and in charge. That's probably Ghislaine. And yes, the child victim, who was only a few years old, remembers being raped by multiple men at the fancy rich guy's house. I mean, you just have to pause this and read some of this. It's really horrific. This part absolutely broke me, though. So this screenshot is attached to this document, and it is from a CSAM video. This was sent in to the authorities, and they are saying that this young girl, this victim, remembered being molested on a turquoise blue couch near a window. And they said that this CSAM video, which they've identified, it resembles this victim, it resembles this story. And I mean, it's just horrific. That is the upper torso of a man mid-rape as he rapes a child and films it. These people are fucking sick. And they provide more context, more images, so that authorities can compare the young girl to the girl seen in the turquoise blue couch video still. But this image up top was so graphic and disturbing that it's fully censored from this document. Let me just read this to you right here. The photo shows a girl, her face visible, who looks prepubescent with medium-length dark hair. Several Caucasian men are holding the girl's legs spread open. Her vagina is visible and gashed, and there is blood coming out. In the photo's foreground, a man with a white shirt appears to be inserting his hand or something into her vagina. A round imprinted symbol of some kind is visible on the girl's leg on the underside of her left thigh. In the photo's right-hand corner, there is an arm with a green shirt visible. An arm holds the girl's knee in the air. And then they basically go on to describe the other men that are seen raping this child in this footage. There are purplish bruises on her abdomen. The girl is bleeding all over the place. The girl's mouth looks bloody and her tongue is extended. There's a bruise under her left eye and a red mark on the left side of her neck. But let me remind you, according to the DOJ and the FBI, they don't need to investigate this anymore. The DOJ and the FBI want to let these pedophiles get away with this shit. It's disgusting.
Let's make a correction. It's not overwhelmingly the DOJ and the FBI. It's Pam Bondi. It's Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi saw this photo before she said that there was no evidence of crimes. Pam Bondi saw this photo before she said that we should ignore what are in the Epstein files because the Dow Jones Industrial is over $50,000. This photo, Attorney General Pam Bondi has seen this photo and is telling you that you need to move on.
Yeah. When discussing anything, but especially things of such sensitive matter, let's make sure that we are as accurate as possible. Okay? Let's make sure. Let's make sure we do that. Okay? Now, That takes us to these two Fox idiots. Let's get into it. What they've done now. Why? This wants to pop up all of a sudden. Is it going to play? Okay. Does it not want to play? Okay. Well, I guess the video does not want to play, so we'll just stick to the article then. Alrighty. Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld under fire for Epstein remark. Fox News personalities Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld have often worked together as they covered various news stories. It's very generous to call anything that goes on over on Fox News, but okay. Recently, the two were joined by other co-hosts as they discussed a story concerning the Jeffrey Epstein files. However, since then, a few viewers have shared their reactions to the conversation on social media, with many taking issue with what was said. Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld are both known for their work with Fox News. Waters is known for hosting Jesse Waters Primetime, while Gutfeld hosts Gutfeld. Naturally, the two have often appeared on the network's programs together, but notably served as co-hosts on The Five. Recently, the two were a part of a discussion concerning the Epstein files. They also could be heard defending Attorney General Pam Bondi's testimony before the House Judiciary Committee. Co-host Lisa Kennedy Montgomery was critical of Bondi, calling her a shrieking Karen. Dana Perino agreed with the sentiments. However, Waters took the conversation in another direction. Of course he did. Waters shared, "If you read the Epstein files, the Wall Street Journal has done a great job at this. Epstein got his money from two Jewish billionaires." Oh boy. Lex Wexner and Leon Black, and a little bit of money from the Jewish banking dynasty, the Rothschilds in Europe. Oh my goodness. And it looks like he's mostly just a fixer, a guy who advises. He helps people with their problems. Sometimes those problems are, you need a girl. This caused Lisa to suggest that what was really needed was penicillin. He's not a fixer. He tried to position himself as a pimp. Following this, Gutfeld chimed in joking, "He's a sex rabbi," causing his co-host to laugh. Waters responded, "He should perform at the halftime show next year." This caused Perino to acknowledge that Epstein has since passed on, with co-host Brian Kilmeade commenting that he was hanged by a noose. As noted by the U.S. Express, many viewers took issue with the jokes, feeling the show was making light of a dark story. As one commenter wrote on X, "Fox News is making jokes, calling Epstein a sex rabbi. This seems wrong for a whole lot of reasons. Do you think this is funny?" Another wrote, "So sick and tasteless. Cancel them all. Did y'all forget that Jesse Waters is the same person that felt comfortable enough and received very little, if no backlash, for saying how he stalked and set up his current wife? Slashing her tires to force her to ride with him. Like, y'all, you knew that he was a predator. You knew that these were predators on this show. You made them comfortable. When Trump said grab him by the pussy, y'all called it locker room talk. Now you want to get offended? You set the stage for this. Like, did you forget that? Like, y'all are telling me that you want to clutch pearls now. You set the stage. You announced the opener. You sold the tickets. Why do you think they're this comfortable? You've been a part of the cover-up. Coming from themirror.com, girl turned into sex doll by Epstein after surviving rape by her own stepfather. A survivor of Jeffrey Epstein recalled how the convicted pedophile began abusing her when she was only 14 years old. Marina Lacerda came to the U.S. from Brazil when she was 8, and by the time she was in high school freshman, she had 3 jobs to help support her family. The teen met Epstein during a difficult time in her home life. At the time, Lacerda's stepfather had just gone to jail for sexually abusing her between the ages of 8 to 12, which affected her relationship with her mother. Another young girl recruited the teen to work for the multimillionaire, telling her she could earn $300 for a 30-minute massage. Lacerda also believed that Epstein, a man with significant connections throughout New York City, could help her achieve her dream of becoming a ballerina or performing on Broadway. For a period of 4 years, Lacerda was subjected to abuse at the hands of Epstein. In the 2019 indictment charges against the disgraced financier, Lacerda was referred to as Minor Victim 1. The now 37-year-old was key in securing charges against Epstein months before he was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan. However, it wasn't until September 2025 that Lacerda went public about the abuse she suffered. When I do talk about it, it's therapeutic for me, she told the Daily Mail. Lacerda explained how Epstein groomed her, creating a false sense of security by being kind and gentle to the teen at first. She said she never witnessed him be violent and that the billionaire was very nice about her not being able to have sex at 14. This seems to be a pattern of his, part of his grooming ritual, if you will. He was like, it's going to take some time to get her to be comfortable, she said. I think because his whole thing was he likes to be challenged. And when he knew that he was going to be challenged and there was some way to work around it, he was willing to do it. He was willing to put in the work. At some point, the abuse became normalized, and Lacerda said Epstein used her to teach other girls how he wanted them to act. He would use me as a doll, prompt me to say to the girls, this is how you're supposed to do things. This is how you're supposed to move your body. This sounds a lot like the account of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who put out the memoir Nobody's Girls. And he would say, this is what a good girl would do. She continued, he would get upset. He would definitely tell us off, but not violent. He never hit myself or any of my friends. And that's why a lot of us girls say he's charismatic, because he is nice. He's not a terrible, mean person. He did terrible things, don't get me wrong. And this is the thing, a lot of abusers create this kinship and have their victims fighting to defend them. As a survivor of rape, Lacerda is warning others about the signs of grooming and abuse. She implored people to see survivors not as adult women, but as children. You have to remember, who you're seeing testify today, who you're seeing in these interviews today, are not the people that were abused. And so many people are being disrespectful, going, well, you have a job, you have this, why did you keep going back? Or you could have overpowered them. And what gets me are the people that act as if because they weren't abused in the same way, they wouldn't stand for that abuse, or they refuse to admit that they were ever abused, or the men that act as if, oh, a child can fight off an adult. Please stop. Sometimes it's best for you to just keep your mouth shut. I'd like to say, look at your kids, look at your sister, look at your mother. What if it was them, she asked. Now keep in mind, if you are, let me say this, if you are a survivor of sexual assault, you can call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673, or you can visit their website. Once again, that number is 1-800-656-4673. Do know you are not alone and you are not to blame in any of this. There we go. Pam Bondi says DOJ released all Epstein files, names Trump, Biden, Zuckerberg, Tucker Carlson among politically exposed persons. The Justice Department said it has released all files tied to the dead sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein, according to a letter sent by Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy AG Tom Blanche to lawmakers on Saturday night. Here's the thing, even though it's called the Epstein File Transparency Act, it also is to include files connected to her. No, you haven't released all of those. And this is there's such a cornucopia of things, such a cornucopia. And Pam Bondi, when did you act upon the latent warrants and subpoenas regarding his estate and all the things that you should be collecting from his brother Mark? When have you dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's? But I digress. Bondi and Blanche's letter said the DOJ has fulfilled its obligation to release files as part of the Epstein Transparency Act and outline why it redacted certain portions. Yeah, we know what y'all, we don't trust your letters when it comes to anything, but especially not the Epstein Maxwell files, because we remember the other letter that you put out. So no. In accordance with the requirements of the Act, you have not been in compliance with the requirements of the Act since December 19th of 2025, and as described in various department submissions to the courts of the Southern District of New York assigned to the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell prosecutions and related orders, the department released all records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in the possession of the department that relate to Epstein. The letter said, you a lie, and you didn't even let the courts determine that you were in the wrong. But okay. It also included a lengthy list of government officials and politically exposed persons who were named in the files. For a few view of the listing, you can look at the update that I did earlier today. It is marked and it's in the playlist Epstein Maxwell files. Okay. That list included President Donald Trump, ex-President Joe Biden, Tucker Carlson, Bruce Springsteen, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, California Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat, Robert De Niro, Alec Baldwin, Barbara Streisand, ex-Vice President Kamala Harris, and former President Barack Obama, among many others. Let me remind you all, being in the files means nothing because the Epstein-Maxwell files are a conglomerate of a multitude of document types, from notes to emails to text messages, transcripts of voicemails, etc. So somebody can appear in the files because somebody else brought them up for any reason. Because let's not forget, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Bruce Springsteen, all named in the files. And they're doing this on purpose, and they're continuously putting things out with no context and strangely redacted. Names appear in the files released under the Act in a wide variety of contexts, the letter noted. For example, some individuals have extensive direct email contact with Epstein or Maxwell, while other individuals are mentioned only in a portion of a document, including press reporting that on its face is unrelated to the Epstein or Maxwell matters. Because here's the thing, they have redacted people's names, obviously in an attempt to protect them, but they didn't redact the names of people that are just casually mentioned. And they gave the context to Congress, but no context to the general public, knowing that people would run wild with it because they're banking on you allowing your imagination to run wild, and you mess up any prospects, any hope of justice, while you convince yourself every night that you're standing on the right side of history. The letter said no records were withheld or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government or financial public figure or foreign dignitary. That's a lie, because you did do that. Politico senior legal affairs reporter Josh Gersten shared the letter on X. It was addressed to the Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley, Republican out of Iowa, Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat out of Illinois, and House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan, Republican out of Ohio, and Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat out of Maryland. The Justice Department, according to the letter, worked in consultation with victim counsel and victims directly. No, they didn't, and that's been proven. On what should be redacted in the files. That is a lie. You did not work with them, and they have publicly said this multiple times. I don't know who you're lying to at this point because it can't be us. That included personally identifiable information of victims or victim or victims' personal and medical files, which the letter said would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. You had unredacted the full driver's license of a victim, amongst other things. Stop lying. Saturday's letter comes days after Bondi was lambasted by a number of Democratic lawmakers and Representative Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky, over her handling of the Epstein files. Was she lambasted, or did she act a plumb damn fool on Capitol Hill? Which one was it? I'd go with the. I'd definitely go with the latter. Definitely. So, coming from Express US at the-express.com, chilling Epstein videos archived on JeffTube site, including chasing girls in kitchen. Let's get into it. A video archive of disturbing clips found in the Jeffrey Epstein files has been released, revealing shocking moments such as the pedophile billionaire chasing girls in a kitchen. Jmail is a browser-based archive of the public emails released by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The archive was created by Riley Waltz and Luke Igel to make the files easier to access and browse. On Monday, the Jmail team released JeffTube, a YouTube clone featuring all the videos from the Epstein files. The website is presented from the disgraced financier's viewpoint, making it appear as if the user logged into the account. There are hundreds of videos on the account, some of which are organized into playlists, such as hours-long videos of Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in her jail cell and a shot outside Epstein's New York City jail cell where he would be found unconscious. Why? Why present it like this? Oh, that's right, because people like salaciousness. People like to torment victims and then bitch and complain when victims refuse to come forward. And when heinous crimes like this happen to them, they're like, well, nobody will corroborate my story. This is why. Why? More disturbing videos are the ones seemingly taken by Epstein himself, including one titled Chasing Girls in the Kitchen. Epstein is seen standing on a kitchen island as he's chasing girls around the kitchen. The girls' faces are completely blacked out, making it impossible to determine their ages. Another clip shows what appears to be a girl wearing a Japanese schoolgirl uniform, kneeling on the floor. One shows a woman lying on a couch. Epstein rubs her shoulders. Nearly every video has a comment section filled with FBI agents reacting to the videos. The Jmail website was launched in November 2025, with the creators explaining that it took about 5 hours in total to develop. On the website, users can browse Epstein's inbox as if it were their own. A search bar allows them to dig even deeper to find Epstein's correspondence with specific people. I think the craziest, most meta part is that you're reading his private emails of him trying to clean up his own reputation, Engel, a Russian Hill AI engineer, told the San Francisco Standard. Yeah. Coming from TheGuardian.com, New Mexico approves Truth Commission on alleged Jeffrey Epstein ranch abuse. New Mexico has approved a Truth Commission to investigate abuse on Jeffrey Epstein's ranch outside Santa Fe amid ongoing calls for transparency about the late sex offender's crimes. The move by legislators on Monday follows the Justice Department's release of millions of investigative documents into Epstein last month, which has renewed interest into the financier's Zorro Ranch. Multiple women and girls have said they were sexually abused on the roughly 10,000-acre, 4,000-hectare property. Law enforcement has paid little attention to activities there, however. Authorities have raided Epstein's other properties, including his New York townhouse, Caribbean Island, Palm Beach mansion, and Paris apartment. But multiple state and local officials have said they were not aware of any federal search at the ranch. Hector Valderez, who served as New Mexico's Attorney General at the time of Epstein's July 2019 arrest, said in a statement that his office investigated activity that occurred in New Mexico that was still viable for prosecution, including contact with multiple victims. Valderez said his office backed off after federal prosecutors in New York handling the Epstein investigation asked that we hold any further state investigation or prosecution of activity related to Epstein, as they communicated to us that they were already leading an active multi-jurisdictional prosecution. Emails released by the Justice Department in late January also state that Valderez's office agreed to cease any investigation into sex trafficking and share whatever they had gathered regarding sex trafficking activity with our office. A December 2019 email from a prosecutor to the co-executor of Epstein's estate stated that federal agents had not searched the New Mexico property. They also do not appear to have been any state or local law enforcement investigations into what happened on Epstein's property. Andrea Romero, a Democrat New Mexico State House representative who sponsored the Truth Commission legislation, said the committee will deploy subpoena power and testimony as well as official records to put the whole story together. Source NM reported. The subcommittee, which must have 4 representatives from both major political parties, is expected to have a $2 million budget and run through 2026. New Mexico residents deserve to know the truth about what went on at Zorro Ranch and who knew about it, Romero said. The commission is funded by a settlement between the New Mexico Attorney General and Deutsche Bank during the investigation of financial institutions' role in failing to identify the sexual abuse and trafficking of underage girls at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Now, if y'all want a conspiracy, y'all need to ask yourself, between Trump's fraud, the money that he still owes Deutsche Bank, and Epstein and Maxwell. Coming from thehollywoodreporter.com, Steve Bannon says he courted Jeffrey Epstein with chummy text for a documentary. Steve Bannon says newly released text messages exchanged with the late Jeffrey Epstein in 2019 aimed to cajole the disgraced financier and convicted pedophile into participating in a documentary he was at work on at the time. I'm a filmmaker and TV host with decades of experience interviewing controversial figures. That's the only lens through which these private communications should be viewed, a documentary filmmaker working over a period of time to secure 50 hours of interviews from a reclusive subject, Bannon, a podcaster and Donald Trump's former strategist, said in a statement to the New York Times for a February 16th profile. Here's the thing. If Steve Bannon was only in the film side of things, if he was never involved in anything else, I would believe that. But given that, like it says, he's a former Donald Trump senior strategist. Nobody knows him as a filmmaker or a TV host. I know him as a convict and a BS politician. Well, political assistant. Bannon added, the long gestating documentary about Epstein will be released later this year and will destroy the very myths he created. Why is it taking you so long? This man been dead for a while. What new information could you have gotten? You had direct communication with him in 50 freaking hours. You had nothing but time for a while, buddy boy. Bookie butt. The rumpled former Trump advisor in the latest text revelations has been seen once again to have advised Epstein and apparently staged a behind-the-scenes media makeover during a series of videotape sessions at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse in which Bannon served as his interviewer. This is why I said the original intent behind this documentary, I don't think was to break down any barriers or anything. But this should also let you know Bannon has no loyalty to anybody but himself. So I wonder how many hours of footage does he have on Trump, and when does he plan on dropping that? How long after Trump drops dead? Well, the clock is ticking for both of them. They both are coughed in a clogged artery away from crossing to the other side of the moral river, or the mortal river. But he was just trying to get Epstein to open up as a professional filmmaker, Bannon told the New York Times. His statement, which follows earlier revelations about video footage of the two men in an apparent documentary interview shoot, will add to a long-running debate about whether Bannon really had a documentary in the works or was looking to help rehabilitate Epstein's reputation with media training. I think it's the latter, because Bannon really prides himself on being a Svengali for the powerful, especially the politically powerful. The chummy text exchanges, and they seem to have bonded over racism. Of course they did. The chummy text exchanges between Bannon and Epstein were part of the latest U.S. Department of Justice release of documents surrounding investigations into the convicted sex offender who died while in federal custody in 2019. The exchanges include Bannon giving Epstein advice on how he should handle continuing investigations into his past ahead of his eventual arrest and jailing. His New York Times statement about researching a documentary comes as Bannon and a host of other power players face growing criticism over their inclusion in the Epstein files. Not just their inclusion in the Epstein files. Let's keep things in context and let's be honest. The extent and the context regarding them being across multiple document types and them having direct communication with Epstein, especially after his initial conviction and after him having to register officially and publicly as a sex offender. Let's stop trying to take accountability away from people. All right, now moving to the Inquisitor, coming from the Inquisitor.com. Newly released Jeffrey Epstein files reveal his disturbing obsession with ex-girlfriend's teenage daughter who called him uncle. Newly released files from the Department of Justice, the DOJ, have revealed more harrowing details about the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The former resident of West Palm Beach, Florida, used his connections with global elites to commit his crimes. The new batch of documents have unearthed yet another tenet of the disgraced business financier's life that has rattled many. Epstein was reportedly infatuated with the teenage daughter of one of his ex-girlfriends, who referred to him as her uncle. This is despite his relationship with his partner and co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Disturbing new emails decoded from the recently released batch of files have confirmed the information. The DOJ files have named a certain Selena Dubin, the daughter of Swedish model Eva Dubin. The sex offender dated Dubin back in the 1980s and 1990s. Dubin won the title of Miss Phelan and came fourth runner-up in the Miss Universe pageant in 1980. Although Epstein publicly called Selena his goddaughter, it was revealed that he promised to buy her some revealing clothes when she turned 16. The files show that Selena exchanged hundreds of messages with Epstein, who she knew as Uncle F. Even though the two proclaimed to have a respectful equation, It was by 2014 that Epstein allegedly told his friends about his plans of marrying Selena, who was just 19 at the time. A Business Insider report claims that he repeatedly mentioned to many of his friends that Selena was perhaps the only person he wanted to marry. However, the remark was dismissed as an offhand comment by the Dubin family. A family insider revealed that they had no idea about the seriousness of Epstein's remarks. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But oftentimes, like it happens with victims that feel like they benefited in the end, they take it when it comes to their children, especially their daughters. Oh, she'll suffer a little bit, but she'll have a cushy life. Selena is currently 30 years old. She completed her graduation from Harvard in 2017. Later, she earned a medical degree from Mount Sinai and continues to be a resident doctor there. A family spokesperson told on Selena's behalf, "There's no justification for dragging Selena into a public controversy she had nothing to do with." Exactly. Drag her mama through it. The files show that Eva invited the sex offender to her home in 2010, 2 years after his 2008 conviction. In one of their text messages, the sweetest model made a mention of her daughter Selena and wrote, "Come and visit next week. Selena will have 5 friends over." Once again, 2 things that I'm going to keep reminding you all. One, stop asking for just the men, just the men, just the men, because there had to be just as many women or more in order for them to pull this off. Number 1. Number 2. There are some women out here that trade their daughters like Pokemon cards. I wish it wasn't so, but we all know 'tis so. Okay. Well, one story that I had, I'm just going to say the title here. I'll see if I can find another source. We really need an intervention. The Epstein files just exposed what Steve Bannon was secretly plotting against Trump in 2019. I'm getting a 404 error right now. Let's see. Let's see if it'll come up anywhere else. Okay, based on newly released documents from the U.S. Department of Justice in February 2026, text messages reveal that Steve Bannon, a former chief strategist for Donald Trump, discussed the possibility of having Trump removed from office via the 25th Amendment in late 2018 and early 2019. Key details of Bannon's actions and plotting around that time include 25th Amendment discussions. Following the 2018 midterm elections, Bannon texted Jeffrey Epstein that Trump was beyond borderline and that the 25th Amendment should be considered for his removal. Okay. Fort Apache comment in a December 31st, 2018 / January 1st, 2019 exchange, Bannon agreed with Epstein that the White House was in chaos, comparing it to Fort Apache with no cavalry en route, and noting that Democrats were likely to blow him up out of the box. Plot to take down the Pope. In June 2019, Bannon told Epstein he was planning to take down Pope Francis, whom he viewed as a globalist obstacle to his nationalist populist agenda. Rehabilitating Epstein. Throughout 2019, Bannon worked on a documentary project aimed at rehabilitating Epstein's image, conducting around 15 hours of interviews with him despite the growing sex trafficking allegations. undermining DOJ protections. Documents indicates discussions between Bannon and Epstein about removing DOJ protections to allow for the indictment of a sitting president. Bannon has defended these communications as part of his work as a filmmaker trying to gain access to a reclusive subject, claiming the documentary was intended to destroy the very myths Epstein created. Alrighty then. I don't know why the original article was pulled, but here's what it is. Alrighty. Moving on. Whoopi Goldberg breaks silence after being named in Epstein files. During the latest episode of The View, co-host Whoopi Goldberg broke her silence after being named in the Jeffrey Epstein files. The 70-year-old TV personality, comedian, movie mogul, why y'all keep addressed her name being mentioned during the Tuesday, February 17th episode of The Morning Show. This comes after, with her name was referenced 21 times in the latest email releases from the DOJ. There was never any suggestion that she was guilty of any wrongdoing, which she confirmed on the program. Displaying a screenshot of the file on the big screen, Whoopi addressed the issue head on. She explained, "In the name of transparency, my name is in the files. Yes." And what does it say? It says, Whoopi needs a plane to get to Monaco, John Lennon's. It should say Julian Lennon's charity is paying for it. She continued, they don't want to charter, so they're looking for private owners. Here's the info. And they give all the information, and they're saying, do you want to offer your G2? To which her co-host, Joy Behar, then chimed in. So in other words, anyone can be on this list. Bingo boingo. To which Whoopi confirmed, this is my point. I'm telling you, when people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend, I wasn't his friend, I was not only too old, but it was at a time where this is just not, you used to have the facts before you said stuff. She went on to add, I'm speaking about me because I'm getting dragged. People actually believe that I was with him. It's like, honey, come on. Every man I've ever been with, you've known about him because either the Inquirer wrote about it, people wrote about this stuff. And no, I didn't get on a plane because you know what I would have to do to get on that plane. They're trying to get me on a plane to get me to this thing for Julian Lennon. And that's another thing. People forget that folks run out things. Folks, especially wealthy people, they will monetize any and everything. Okay, they will rent out spoons for you to use, honey. And this is why I keep reminding people, the Epstein-Maxwell files are a conglomerate of different document types, and you need to understand. This is why you cannot just stand by and listen to the people that are just typing in names and going, oh yeah, this name appears so X amount of times. In what context? Giving information with no context, removing context and nuance does what? At the end of the day, you are removing the chances for the victims to receive justice. Y'all keep acting like it's some grand cover-up and all these millions of dollars exchanged hands to keep these people from facing accountability. No, you are why they're not facing accountability. You're doing the work for free. Don't like it? Stop doing it. Coming from liveandletsfly.com. Hyatt chairman resigns after Epstein emails surface showing hotel favors and may the force be with you reply. Hyatt chairman steps down over Epstein files as remarkable email exchanges surface. Tom Pritzker, the billionaire executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels Corporation and cousin to J.D. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, has announced his immediate retirement from that role and that he will not stand for re-election to the board at the company's 2026 annual meeting. The announcement comes amid heightened scrutiny after the U.S. Justice Department released a new tranche of documents related to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and Pritzker's name appeared repeatedly in communications. Hyatt never mentioned the Epstein files in its press release, insinuating that the 75-year-old Pritzker is retiring from his role. The official press release contains a statement from Pritzker. It is, and I quote, "I've been a proud member of the Hyatt family since the beginning of Hyatt. As I said in my letter to the board, it has been both an honor and one of the great experiences of my life to have contributed to Hyatt's growth. Hyatt is well positioned for the future, and I have great confidence in Mark, our leadership team, and the board as they continue to build on our strong foundation." Hyatt's president and CEO, Mark Hoplamazian, is now chairman of the board. But in a separate letter to the Hyatt board, Pritzker acknowledged his relationship with Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, saying, and I quote, "Good stewardship also means protecting Hyatt, particularly in the context of my association with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, which I deeply regret. I exercised terrible judgment in maintaining contact with them, and there is no excuse for failing to distance myself sooner." Pritzker has led Hyatt for more than 2 decades, overseeing its initial public offering and global expansion. His resignation marks a significant leadership shift for the hospitality giant. So what did Pritzker write? Behind the public statement is a striking set of email exchanges that have drawn fresh attention. In one of the newly released messages from April 2018, Epstein wrote to Pritzker asking for help booking hotels for a woman in his inner circle named Karina Shuliak. Karina is going on an Asian exploration, first to Bali and then Kuala Lumpur and Tokyo. Can you help her the last 2 places? Pritzker's initial reply was fairly shocking. Yes, I can go with her. Happy to help. What can I do? Subsequent messages show Pritzker following up with direct questions, asking the same person, "What are you going to do there?" The response attributed to Epstein's associate was equally candid, saying she planned going to try to find a new girlfriend for Jeffrey. Pritzker's final reply in the exchange again uses an emotion and raises eyebrows. "May the force be with you, TJP." And do not start that, well, J.D. Pritzker, just because they're related and share the same last name does not mean that they share the same friend groups, the same predilections, the same poor judgment. Stop. If your cousin goes out and robs a liquor store tomorrow, does that make you a burglar too? Oh, okay. And closing out tonight's updates, coming from cafemom.com, unredacted Jeffrey Epstein files reveal victims as young as 9. Lawmaker says this is preposterous. That's not the words I would have used, but we're trying not to get banned tonight. The slow rollout of the Epstein files has continued to reveal more and more horrific things. Disgraced entrepreneur Jeffrey Epstein, who died by suicide in prison in 2019 after being convicted of child sexual abuse, had ties to many powerful men and women, including former Prince Andrew, who has lost his royal titles as a result. As more of Epstein's files continue to be released, lawmakers are pushing for more transparency about the information they contain. Recently, a group of lawmakers, including Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat out of Maryland, got together to review the unredacted files, which reveal that some of Epstein's victims were even younger than we imagine. Raskin and several others, including Representative Thomas Massey, Republican out of Kentucky, and Representative Ro Khanna, Democrat out of California, reviewed documents for hours to further investigate Epstein's crimes, the New York Post reported. You read through these files and you read about 15-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 10-year-old girls, said Raskin, who was a top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. I saw a mention of a 9-year-old girl today. I mean, this is just preposterous and scandalous. Once again, you all don't need to sensationalize anything. You don't. Massey, a Kentucky Republican who co-sponsored the legislation to release the files, added that he saw a reference to a senior foreign government official in Epstein's circle. He also found that 6 other men have their names redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in the files. According to The Independent, Massey said he would probably reveal their identities from the floor or in a committee hearing. If he did so, he would be shielded from any possible lawsuits by the speech and debate clause. There are 6 men, some of them with their photographs, that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why these people were redacted, Khanna added, per the outlet. That's really concerning. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche replied to Massey on X, writing, "The document you cite has numerous victims' names. We have just unredacted all non-victim names from this document. The DOJ is committed to transparency." No, you're not. In another he shared, "Be honest and stop grandstanding." How about you start, Todd Blanche? "We didn't want to see any redactions of the names of co-conspirators, accomplices, enablers, abusers, rapists, simply to spare them potential embarrassment, political sensitivity, or disgrace of some kind," Jamie Raskin said, according to The Independent. And yet, nonetheless, that the Epstein documents that were released are filled with redactions of names and information about people who clearly are not victims and may fall into that other category. Of course. But once again, let me remind you, far too many of you all are doing the work of preventing justice for free. As always, thank you for joining me here for Tazisms on Conversations with Taz. I will see you all tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central for the Taz Effect Daily News in a way you did not know you could use. But tonight, make sure you tune into GCPR YouTube or GCPR.live for Conversations with T. Nathan at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard. And make sure you tune in bright and early at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central for Sound of Coffee with Thomas the Villain Bishop on GCPR. Otherwise, good night and thank you for joining me. Till tomorrow.